Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and boy, this title is definitely not clickbait. I am installing what is one of the most dangerous pieces of computer viruses that one could ever imagine. Now ladies and gentlemen, when I always tell you about being safe on the internet and being safe with your computer, it's because when you get viruses like remote access Trojans that are very prevalent in today's day and age, anything that you have on your computer could easily be compromised with a few clicks. And today I'm going to show you how devilishly easy it's going to be. So it's going to be a little bit of a technical video. Now to understand, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you the real script kiddie way, the skiddy way, and then I'm going to show you one that can actually be a little scary, one that is extremely easy and very powerful to do. Now, of course, obviously, there are some disclaimers. I'm not going to show you exactly how to do this. I'm not teaching you how to actually hack computers, simply because I'm sure that's against YouTube's terms of services, and there is a clear ethical problem with that. Number two, also, do not try this at home. You know why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I might be a complete buffoon, but I know my way around computers. Most people do not, okay? Especially when it comes to this. Some average Andy's going to download malware, run it on their system, raw dog that, and the next thing you know, but Muna, now my computer's filled with ransomware. Well, of course, be very careful. If you know what you're doing, hey man, jump for it. But let's get started with how this goes. So obviously, we are playing with virtual machines today, okay? So for instance, I've got a few right here. I've got a Windows 10 RAT, which is supposed to be the victim today. I've got a Windows 10 Attacker OS, and then I've got a Linux, Kali Linux, operating system to actually run some of the more devilishly harder hacks. So it's gotten to the point where the reason I'm making this video is it's actually gotten really easy, where like you've got some actual services where they sell these remote access tools, if you will, not Trojans necessarily as they would like to call it, where you can actually buy these things for a very inexpensive price in some cases. We're talking literally 58 bucks for a month. Now, of course, this toolkit can be used to infect computers or use them to remotely access and play around with them. So obviously, if you look at the user interface over here, it might be a little difficult, but this is something that you can easily find floating around on various GitHubs. So I'm going to show you one example on the system. So I've got a Windows attacker here, and then I've got a Windows, victim. So of course, obviously, I'm going to give you the POV of the hacker, and I'm going to show you what it is to be the actual person being hacked. Now, for the hackers over here, they have access to a bunch of tools. In this case, we're looking at something known as Quasar, okay? So, of course, anybody can get their hands on something like this, and I'm not promoting that you do it. Again, these are designed to be remote access tools. But of course, with something like this, anytime you get technology, there's always going to be bad actors using this kind of technology for very nefarious reasons. So obviously a hacker over here is going to fire up something known as Quasar. Now, of course, the reason I'm showing you this easy one is because most antiviruses will pick this up. You can see Microsoft Windows is begging me not to fire this up. But because I can choose to do whatever I want on my computer, I'm going to run it anyways. And I'm going to show you what things look like. So obviously, Quasar over here is actually looking for a bunch of computers that I control. Now, what a hacker will do is they'll go to the builder, and they'll actually build the actual system. So they'll give it a client tag, like for instance, they'll call it victim. Of course, they've got a process mutex, which is basically ensuring that one instance of the client is running. So again, you can create a bunch of random ones. You can have unattended mode. You can go to connection settings and input your IP address. So basically, what this is going to do for the hacker is once a hacker launches it, this program, the one that you build, will look specifically for that IP. This is going to be the command and control server, obviously. And of course, you've got a bunch of extra settings for installations, monitoring, and various assembly. Now, I've already built one and sent it over to another system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to settings, I'm going to start listening, and basically the hacker is just going to be listening on a specific port, waiting for them to discover the person they've hacked. Now, in this case, hackers will use things like Discord, email services, file sharing services, various content delivery networks to spread their virus around, which is why you never install any application just floating around there willy-nilly, okay? Some of that stuff can be filled with some really nefarious Trojans. Now, of course, if somebody sends something to you over Discord, chances are that will probably check for viruses, and it may not even let this cross. But let's assume in the off chance you do get this sent under the guise of some video game, some cool meme, whatever tool, somebody social engineers you to launch this application. Well, all of a sudden on your system, if you launch it, you'll eventually be triggered right here onto their command and control system. Now, in this case, your system doesn't look like it has anything else going on it. But to the actual hacker, they can now look around your system, and in this case, they actually have administrator privileges. So what they can do is they can go inside over here, they can check your system information. So here they've got a complete idea of what your system is all about, where your time zone is, what your country is, assuming you set that absolutely accurately. Then, of course, they've also can right-click over here, go to your administration. They can check your file managers and look around all your files. So, for instance, they can go all the way around to your user directory. They can go to, your actual user account, your desktop, and just download whatever they want. So, for instance, if I want to download this file, just right-click, download that, and bam, ladies and gentlemen, it's now on my system. Of course, the more and more you go into it, there's a bunch of other things that you can do. You can open up a remote shell where you can basically, start to gain like privilege access. You can do other nefarious things to do to basically take even more control of that person's system. Do you want to see what that person's up to? What kind of hentai they're watching? Well, using a remote desktop, you can hit start and bam! We have a live feed of what that person's up to. They're browsing the web. We can see exactly what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. You have complete access into another person's entire system. Now, of course, to show you where it really gets scary is there are things known as keyloggers in this case, where basically you can start to get some idea of what that person is up to. So for instance, if I'm just browsing the internet on my actual virtualized container, I'm just going to try to log into my actual email account. So for instance, if I actually go to my Google account, for instance, I go to google.com and then I go to sign in. And of course, in this case, what I can start to do is actually gather all of their keylogs. Okay, so basically when I run a keylogger, I am actually basically gathering every stroke that they're making on their keyboard. So for instance, right here, this person could type test email at gmail.com, hit enter. The password could be, this is my password. That's a pretty shitty password. 345 $. And of course, if they hit next, oh, it doesn't actually exist. But of course, for the actual hacker, they can then get the logs, open it up, and ladies and gentlemen, if you start to look real quickly, yes, it actually has detected in the Google accounts, so it's actually isolated the exact name of that Edge tab, which is the browser tab, and it's giving you the exact time frame, and it's basically giving you the email, it's giving you the enter, which is the keyboard event, and then of course, in the password field, even though the password was obfuscated underneath the browser, because we had the exact keystrokes, they got your password right there. Now, of course, obviously, this is why you have two-factor authentication. This is why you have a bunch of different multi-factor sources, because this is just how easy it is for some person to infect you. If you're not exactly super intelligent on blocking, or let's say you launch something by mistake, maybe a game that you downloaded and you trusted right off the bat when you probably shouldn't. You may have actually been given some form of malware. Okay, and when you've got malware like that, it's almost undetectable for the most part. Like, unless you've got a script kiddie out there that's just downloading the software and sending out builders without any modifications whatsoever, somebody intelligent could actually grab these builds and find a way so that they don't trip your antiviruses for the most part, okay? Now, obviously, after a while, depending on what tools you use and how widespread it is, eventually antivirus software will pick it up. But of course, if it doesn't and you're infected, that's obviously a big bad sign. Now, of course, this is the boring shit. Let's talk about the fun stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Let's move into the fun good stuff. Now, this is where we're going to look at Kali Linux. Now, obviously, Kali Linux, for a lot of you don't know, is a penetration testing Linux distribution that you can actually download and run a bunch of tools to learn ethical hacking or how computer network stuff works, okay? Computer network intrusions, computer networking, shenanigans. So, of course, in this case, we're going to look at something that we know as the Fat Rat, okay? Now, of course, I don't recommend you use this. I don't endorse this. I'm only showing this to you because it's one of the most powerful open source tools out there. And the more you learn that this kind of stuff exists, the more precautions you can take. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly how to do this, but in this case, we decided to go the extra route and not actually send a file anyways. What happens if somebody just sends you a browser page link and then you get infected that way? So in this case, what we decided to do was get this framework. We got Kali Linux. We basically installed all the software we needed to in a virtual machine. Now, within this virtual machine, all we had to do was basically build a PHP, a PHP file payload. Now, PHP files in this case are designed for web browsers, okay? Now, in this case, what we did was we built a payload. We basically told the payload to look for the specific IP address, which is our command server, a specific port. And then the next thing was to build a web server to host this payload file on. Now, I built a generic payload with nothing to it, but when you build a payload, you can obviously embed the payload within a pretty legitimate looking website, maybe a blog, maybe some phishing site, whatever. Hackers are all kinds of wild people out there, and trust me, when it comes to hiding things in plain sight, they're the goddamn experts. So obviously in this case, you can store that onto a web server, and then you use something known as Metasploit to basically listen for when that exploit is going to be called upon. Now, in this case, we used a reverse TCP exploit and we fired it through an actual web browser. So all the actual victim has to do is be sent a link. Now, in this case, somebody could send you a link through a social media comment, through Discord, through various IM services, you name it, okay? Now, in this case, if you grab that link and without throwing it into something like VirusTotal, or, you just throw it right into your web browser, if your web browser isn't updated enough, or, the actual payload in this case is very unique and it's able to conceal itself and it's actually a good payload, chances are you'll just launch it. Now, in this case, we ran the website. It appeared as a white blank HTML page. And lo and behold, for the actual POV for the hacker perspective, they actually grabbed themselves into the system. Now, of course, Metasploit then throws you into its entire server session, and at this point, you can basically just do what we were doing right before through a command line interface. Now, here was where you can do some wild things. You can look through and gain access to somebody's webcam and start looking right through it. You can record aspects of their microphone and store it on your system. You can log their keys. You can get a good snapshot of not just their system, but the entire network that they've been connected to, wireless or wired. At this point, you can even launch entire shells and then start looking at privilege escalation and persistence. At this point, if a hacker is this deep into your system, then chances are, given a few days, given a few hours, hell, sometimes a few minutes, they might be absolutely entrenched into your system. See, rat viruses, rat malware is incredibly dangerous and incredibly scary to deal with because of how persistent it can be. Sometimes it can be goddamn near untraceable. Sometimes people have rootkitted your system so hard that it's really going to take a good scrub of your actual operating system to completely clear it out of your system. It can be that goddamn invasive and that bad. Now, of course, in this case, we literally launched an exploit through a web link that we sent to, this attacker, if you will. Again, this victim. Now, again, I'm not running these things on an actual web server and connecting it to the external internet. That would be highly illegal. Again, these tools are not meant for you to actually commit crimes with. I'm only showing this for you because I'm trying to really illustrate the point of how dangerous some of this stuff can be. When I sit back and use virtual machines to browse the internet, I think it should start to make a little bit more sense on why I do that. There are a lot of nefarious people out there that are using this kind of technology to infect the average person. And when the average person is infected, it's a lot of their personal information that's on the line, some financial information, their passwords. A lot of that stuff is free goddamn game for a lot of people out there that have very quick, dirty, and easy access to a lot of this kind of malware. Hell, a lot of this stuff you don't even have to pay for. A lot of this stuff is just open source and free tools sitting around. And unfortunately, to figure out how to use them is not even that difficult at the end of the day. Honestly, for a lot of script kiddies out there, it's like the golden age for hacking people. And it's one of the reasons why I'm making these videos, to not only educate you, and it's not really meant to fearmonger, it's really meant to show you the actual power that somebody could have when it comes to taking over your computers and taking over your networks. Again, these kind of payloads and malwares aren't even relegated to just PCs or Macs or Linux systems in general. These can be absolutely used on Android devices as well too, which, might I remind you, is the largest operating system by market share as of today. More people in the world use Android than any other operating system in the entire planet. And when that can be compromised by somebody and backdoored, it can be absolutely scary. Because forget your computer for a second. Your cell phone has more personal information on you by miles compared to anything else in your house or on your person. So in this case, taking the extra precaution to be safe, not clicking weird links, not downloading weird things is something you should absolutely, burn into your goddamn skull and make a goddamn lifestyle point out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to sit down and show you some of the most scariest malware imaginable. And honestly, I wanted to show you just how scary it can be when you're actually looking at it from a hacker's perspective. I think this is an interesting type of video to make because obviously it's easy to show you what it's like to have your computer infected. Honestly, it's boring because really for the person being hacked, it's never really apparent what's going on. But for the person hacking, the amount of stuff that they can do once you've launched whatever application they want or clicked on the link they've sent, they can do some really damaging stuff really, really fast. Now, of course, how do you get rid of remote access Trojans? How do you get rid of this kind of malware? The real answer to that, ladies and gentlemen, is a bit more complicated than anything else we've covered so far. In some cases, some of this malware may be very easy to detect, which obviously Windows Defender or any decent antivirus could probably take care of it anyways. But obviously, when you're dealing with somebody that knows how to conceal this malware, knows how to gain persistence, knows how to privilege escalate, at that point, trying to find this malware can be difficult. Trying to deal with it can be difficult because even if you delete the file, you never know if it's stored somewhere else and it's auto-starting or whatever. There's a bunch of factors involved with this kind of malware that is just, it makes dealing with it so much more difficult. And honestly, aside from like a complete Windows reset or a complete operating system reimage, you're probably going to be stuck with this until you go the absolute nuclear route. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most dangerous viruses ever created, and I wanted to make this video to show you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you learned something, please let me know in the comment section below. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. And if I feel a little low energy, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, the sun is not up for no reason. I've been up all night playing with computer viruses. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lay down in bed. I'm going to play some Yakuza 7 like a dragon and hopefully pass out. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. God damn, did I really fedora tip? Man, I'm tired. Good night. I am out.